So good morning, everyone, and welcome to another of Action Together's Wednesday weekly sessions. So this is your bite-sized briefing, a collaboration between Action Together, the voluntary community faith sector, and the public sector. So today we're joined by Natalie, Development Officer at GMCVO, and she's working on the Phoenix Way project. So I'm going to hand over to Natalie now.
Thank you, Josie. Brilliant. Hello, so as Josie has said, I'm Natalie and I work for GMCVO. If you've not heard of GMCVO, it stands for Greater Manchester Community and Voluntary Organisation. They are a local infrastructure support organisation that were established in 1975. They are based in Ardwick in Manchester, but they support VCFSE organisations all across Greater Manchester. So that's who I work for. And the project that I'm working on, the Phoenix Way, it's delivered as a partnership between GMCVO and the Greater Manchester Ethnic Communities Network. So the Greater Manchester Ethnic Communities Network are a network of organisations from the 10 boroughs of Greater Manchester with a focus on supporting ethnic minority-led organisations. So they provide networking opportunities, information, support and advice. You might have been to one of their quarterly networking meetings at the St Thomas Centre in Ardwick, which is also GMCVO's base. So this project is a partnership between the two organisations. And so we are delivering the Phoenix Way together in Greater Manchester. So the aim of the Phoenix Way is to transform access to funding for Black and racially minoritised VCFSE organisations across England and Wales. So the project started during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2022. At the time, the voluntary and community sector were really on the front line of supporting communities who were hardest hit by COVID and lockdown. And in response to this, there was a lot of funding available. Some of the sort of red tape that you normally get with grants and funding was removed or reduced to try and support the voluntary and community sector to support communities. But there was definitely a feeling that while this was very positive, a lot of that funding and financial support wasn't reaching ethnic minority communities, despite the fact that they were some of the hardest hit by COVID-19. And so in response to this, the Youth Endowment Fund ring-fenced a pot of funding to be used to support children and young people in ethnic minority communities. And this pot of funding was supposed to go to ethnic minority-led organisations supporting those communities. To do this work, they worked with Global Fund for Children and the London-based Black-led organisation, the Ubeli Initiative CIC, and distributing this funding across England and Wales. So they knew there was going to be a lot of interest in this fund, but it was incredibly oversubscribed to, which led the three partners to realise that actually there was a bigger piece of work that needed to be done to address the barriers that ethnic minority organisations face when accessing funding. So that is how the Phoenix Way was formed. So from the Phoenix Fund, which was what the original fund was called, the Phoenix Way developed and evolved into a national programme to be delivered across England and Wales. And as well as providing specific funding opportunities for ethnic minority-led VCFSE organisations, the three partners wanted to also look at some of the other barriers that groups were facing. So capacity building and providing training opportunities. So ethnic minority-led groups are better prepared to access funding. They've had training on how to apply for grants and how to write an application, monitoring, that sort of thing. They've also wanted to look at lobbying for inclusive fundraising practice. So are there things that funders can do differently to make funding more accessible, and also providing networking and knowledge sharing opportunities for ethnic minority-led VCFSE organisations across England and Wales. But it's a big patch to cover. And they were very aware that they are London-based organisations and might not always be in tune to what is happening in other parts of the country. So they decided that for this programme, they wanted to employ a regional infrastructure and essentially split England up into 6 regions. So that's London in the southeast, Bristol and the southwest. There's the Midlands, North Manchester, the Northwest as one area, the Northeast, and Yorkshire and Humberside. So those are the 6 regions. And the Northwest, which is the region that I work for, comprises of 3 sub-regions. So for the main lead for this piece of work, the Phoenix Way in the Northwest, is an organisation called Inclusive North. So they are a Lancashire-based organisation and they lead on the Phoenix Way Northwest in Lancashire. Then you have the Greater Manchester team, who I work for. So as I've explained, that's the Greater Manchester Ethnic Communities Network with support from GMCVO. And then there's Cheshire and Merseyside, which is led by our partner, One Knowsley. So the 3 of us make up the Northwest team. And before I talk in more detail about the work that the 3 of us are doing as part of the mapping and research, I'll just talk a little bit about what the Phoenix Way project has done so far since its beginnings in 2020. So there have been various rounds of grant funding that groups have been able to access across England and Wales, and we're really pleased to report that over £500,000 of that has been allocated to groups in the Northwest. And of the Northwest region, Greater Manchester have had the lion's share of that funding. So that's really positive. And again, I think definitely demonstrates that there is a thriving ethnic minority-led VCFSE sector in Greater Manchester. And as well as grants, they've developed paid opportunities for young people, so people aged 30 and under. So recently they've been recruited from across the 6 regions to actually make the decisions on who gets the Phoenix Way funding for the latest round of funding. And that's a paid opportunity as well. So they're really committed to investing in young people and actually making sure people's time is acknowledged and their labour is acknowledged. So that's brilliant. And we know that several young people from Greater Manchester have been recruited as part of the panel. So that's brilliant. There are plans as well to set up a strategic group in the Northwest. So that will include people who are active in various organisations across the Northwest, including Greater Manchester, coming together and providing steer and direction for further Phoenix Way work. So as soon as we get information about that, we can share and distribute that to people in Greater Manchester who might want to be involved in that. And then there's the regional mapping and research project work, which is what I'm involved with and what I will talk to you a little bit about now. So the Phoenix Way recognises that actually for us to address some of the barriers that are facing ethnic minority-led VCFSE organisations, we need to better understand who you are and what you do. So in my role, I'm working across the 10 Greater Manchester boroughs and reaching out and engaging with as many ethnic minority-led organisations as I can, understanding what the sector looks like, so how many organisations are active, what their setup looks like. Are you CICs? Are you charities? Are you larger organisations? Are you micro organisations? And really painting a picture of what the ethnic minority-led sector looks like, and then understanding what the barriers are to accessing funding for you and your organisations. And we're doing this right the way down to a borough level. So we recognise that this work isn't new. And for a long time, some of these gaps and barriers have been reported by organisations, but we're confident that this is the first time that this is being looked at on a hyperlocal level. And then this work will then come together as a report, so a bit of a state of the sector for the ethnic minority-led VCFSE in Greater Manchester and the wider Northwest. And then basically feed into some of that lobbying and that structure change that the Phoenix Way has at the core of what it aims to do. And so we've been working across the boroughs tentatively, having conversations with people, attending different events, different meetings, distributing our survey, and getting feedback from ethnic minority-led organisations. And we've had some feedback, which I'll go through a little bit of what we found so far. So a lot of groups are reporting that initially they have difficulty identifying potential funders. It can be quite intimidating when you sort of search for funding, knowing who's right for you, who will fund what you do, who is the right person for your organisation. So that's a barrier. And then another barrier that people are reporting is that there's insufficient funding opportunities for ethnic minority-led projects in England and the Northwest. Groups also have difficulty articulating their project value, so they know that they're doing great work. The people that they support often sing their praises and talk about the positive impact that they're having on their lives, but putting that down on paper and articulating that can be really difficult. And then there's also a desire for funding focused capacity building. So a lot of organisations would like some support, be it one-to-one, peer support, or group sessions around capacity building. So again, like getting better at writing applications, identifying funders, looking at governance, IT skills. There's a real desire for that. There's also a desire for mentoring and partnerships. So people want to work together, they want to share their skills, they want to learn from bigger, more established organisations. So going forward, that's something that we'll be looking at. And we're also realising that there's a real diversity in the ethnic minority-led VCFSE sector in Greater Manchester. And different groups need different things. While there are a lot of informal micro-organisations doing brilliant work, you also have mid-sized and larger organisations who've been around since the 70s and 80s, who are still struggling to access funding. So what the report will do is look at who's what, where they're located and what their specific needs are, so that when this fund continues and this work continues and we get to the sort of the development stage of the fund, we'll be able to provide targeted support to help groups and organisations. So that's it for the presentation. We're just really keen for people to get involved with this work, and there's lots of ways to do that. So one thing we'd really like is for groups to take part in the sector survey. So this is where we're going to get a lot of the data on what our sector looks like. It's a Google form. It takes around about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and it's something that we are happy to sit down and do with you or share the link. But we also want to have one-to-one feedback sessions with people. We want to go out and meet as many groups as we can and understand your specific experiences. We're really keen for people to share their stories, the challenges and the barriers, but we also want to hear successes. So if you've had a funder that you found to have been really supportive of your work, to have helped you a lot, that you've had a good experience with, we'd love for you to share that, as well as some of the challenges and issues, so then we can sort of understand what the best practice for accessible funding looks like. And another opportunity to kind of get involved and get support as an ethnic minority-led VCFSE organisation is to join the Greater Manchester Ethnic Communities Network. So as I said at the start, it's a group of organisations from across Greater Manchester who come together, support each other, network and share knowledge and information. So my details are on the bottom of the slide. They'll be shared with you after today. So please get involved and get in touch with me. I'm really keen to speak to you and to kind of like get your views as part of this work. So yeah, that's me.